As part of this, I am bringing in the ideas related to learning, how the concept of learning has evolved over the years. And second, I'm talking to you about the framework that I have thought I should give you here, which includes 3 theories: theory relating to learning, theory relating to language, theory relating to education. I am putting the 3 things together: learning theory, language theory, and educational theory. These 3 theories are relatively new and very much relevant to the post-human era that we all inhabit. The idea of post-humanism also needs to be understood at this point in time. We have come away from the idea of humanism long back. In fact, humanism centers around humans and their activities. Therefore, humans become the agents and humans take the agency. In the post-human perspective, things have changed. It's not that we alone do things. There are several other things which are there. Both human and non-human players are there in the natural habitat. Therefore, it's important for us to understand and recognize the other players and their contribution to what we do here. So post-human perspective challenges the human agency, right? It challenges the human agency. And that is relevant to our current times because we are not simply doing things on our own. We are absolutely assisted and supported by several other players, including technologies like generative AI as well. Therefore, generative AI also becomes something like MKO. You know what MKO is. You have Vygotsky on the one hand, who talks about constructivist theory, where we get to understand that we have certain level of understanding at this moment. This is what is current knowledge. And this current level of understanding gets enhanced when you work with more knowledgeable other, MKO. When you work with more knowledgeable other, your current knowledge gets enhanced and moves towards what is called potential learning. So the potential learning, moving from actual learning or current learning to the potential learning, is something that gets assisted and supported by or scaffolded by somebody called MKO, more knowledgeable other. This more knowledgeable other need not be a human agent. You get this point? So it could be technology, it could be something like LLM, large language models like generative AI. Could be ChatGPT, it could be Gemini, it could be any other platform. Therefore, this is what is post-human theory talks about: challenging the human agency and giving the space for other non-human players like these. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about. There, as part of post-human condition, and we are talking about, I'm going to bring in the idea of connectivism. Connectivism is different from connectionism. Okay, connectionism is to do with cognitive theory, where you have information processing models, you have the focus on mental processes. But when you talk about connectivism, it focuses on distributed knowledge. Knowledge is distributed. Knowledge is not there at one place. Knowledge is also quite fluid and evolving constantly. In such a scenario, it's important for us to have a relevant learning theory, the theory that had taken the space in the educational sector may not suffice the post-human condition or the post-human era that we have inhabited or we are inhabiting. Therefore, I am bringing in learning theory called connectivism, which relates to the notion or the theory called post-human perspective. The second theory that I try to bring is called systemic functional linguistics. This is a language theory. The language theory that many of us or all of us are familiar with is Chomskyan model. I think we have to sing a requiem for Chomsky perhaps. Okay, it's time. 21st century is for Hallidayan language theory. This theory believes, not even believes, I should say, this theory views language not as a set of rules. Generally, we understand language as a set of rules. Right? Halliday looks at language as a resource for making meaning. In fact, he calls language happens to be one of the semiotic resources available for us to make meaning. Please understand this. To make meaning. We use language to make meaning. We don't learn a language to understand its anatomy and the rules that govern it. You get the point? We learn a language, not necessarily English language teachers, people in general learn language to use it and to make meaning in a given context, minding how the context is determining the way the language is used and the meanings are made to the people that it targets. Right? Therefore, language, according to Halliday, is a resource for making meaning. What does it mean? When you use language as a resource for making meaning, there are two things that we have to keep in mind. One, what is called choice. You have several choices available to you. Right? And these choices, I'm putting the word choice in a very non-technical way. We call it actually paradigmatic choice. Okay? Choice is available for us. These choices, when you make, they become chains. So we have choices and chains. You get this point? Choices, for instance, you want to make certain kind of meaning in a given context. You have, let's say, 20 or 30, or depending on the kind of exposure that you have to the language, you have so many choices available to you. Do you want to use kid? Do you want to use child? Do you want to use brat? Do you want to use maybe something like what do you call? Child, brat, kid. You have a number of choices available. So you choose that choice that fits the context in which you're operating. Then when I say context, what I mean is context, there are two kinds of contexts for us. Context one is to do with cultural context, is to do with culture, the culture in which we are operating. The second context is the context that we are here, that we are at the moment, which is called the immediate context, which is called the here and now. So in the here and now, you mind the topic that you are talking about, you mind the people you are talking to, and your relation with them. Your relation meaning your power relation with them, your emotional connect with them, and what we call the frequency of contact that you have with them. So this is what determines the idea called tenor I'm referring to here. So when I say the power relation, when I say the affect, the emotional connect that you have, and when I say the frequency of contact that you have, these three things determine the kind of choice that you need to make, whether you need to kid, okay, you need to use child, you need to use brat, you need to use something else, depends on your all these three factors. And similarly, the field that you're talking about here. Similarly, the third aspect or the third factor that determines your choice is what is called mode. Are you talking or are you writing? Okay. Secondly, are you operating through a medium called internet, or are you operating over the phone, or is it face-to-face dialogue that you have? This is what is called mode. This is understood in this way better. We have, especially interestingly, posthumanism, as I mentioned earlier, breaks the binaries, no binaries. So the idea of speaking and writing, as binaries gets broken because we understand speaking and writing as points marked on a continuum. As points marked on a continuum, on a scale, on a climb. So you might simply have action on the extreme left side, which could be speaking, simply action and maybe certain kind of other semiotic resources that you might be using. And you have on the extreme right, writing, which is completely removed from the action that happened before. You are simply recreating the scene for somebody who was not present in that scene. Therefore, it is unfortunately and interestingly, it is only through language alone that you are supposed to create the scene, which was actually earlier happened through multiple modes. Therefore, writing on the extreme side becomes complex, dense, and abstract. You understand why writing becomes abstract, dense, and complex? This is the reason. I'll come to these ideas a little later. So this is what I mean by SFL, Systemic Functional Linguistics, as a language theory. Now, the third theory that I'm trying to bring here together is educational theory called Heutagogy. It's called Heutagogy, Heutagogy, Heutagogy. You know Heutagogy coming from the word heuristics. Heu, what is heu? To discover, isn't it? So, Heutagogy, gazi is to lead, right? You're leading your student to discover for herself. Therefore, Heutagogy does not believe in giving agency to the teacher in the classroom. You get this point? Heutagogy believes in giving agency to the learner, because it is the learner who has to discover for herself what that given concept or learning material is, or a situation is. Okay, but what is the role of the teacher? Okay, the teacher facilitates or creates the conducive environment for the learner to have such a possibility of discovery in the classroom. This is what is educational theory that I'm trying to bring in here. These three things constitute the proposition that I make today. Okay? So now, having set the point across, let me now delve into the idea of learning. Learning, as we all know, has evolved over the years. Okay, we all know what learning is when we think of behaviorism. Okay, according to behavioristic theory, what is learning? Any? Yes? Change in behavior. Anything else? What is behavioristic theory talks about? Stimulus and response. Okay? Stimulus and response. You can manipulate stimulus, okay, and you can have desired or condition the response. Okay? You have people like, okay? We have people like B.F. Skinner, Watson, okay, who have pioneered this work. For them, learning is habit formation. Okay, how do you form the habit? By drilling. Why do you engage the learners in drilling? You engage the learners in drilling so that their habits form through what is called reinforcement. It could be you give positive reinforcement when the response is desirable. Okay? When the response is not desirable, you give negative reinforcement. By doing this, you will develop the desirable habits in the learners by believing that learning happens in that fashion. That's how, okay, behaviorism understood the notion of learning at that point in time. But we have come off from that stage. Okay? And now, when you move to the cognitive perspective, for cognitivists, what is learning? For them, learning is to do with developmental changes. Okay? A child of 4 years is different from a child of 14 years. Okay? So, mental processes that happen in both the learners are very different. Therefore, okay, you understand learning as the child grows physically and mentally as well. Accordingly, you design the materials. This is how cognitivists believe in learning. Okay, our cognitivists understand learning. We have somebody called McLaughlin who talks about information processing model. Right? It's all to do with, okay, you have short-term memory, long-term memory, things of that kind are part of this information processing model, which is cognitive theory. Right? Then we have humanistic orientations. Humanism. Sorry. Right. So as I mentioned earlier, humanism places agency in the hands of the humans. In the classroom, it is the teacher. Right? That is what humanistic orient. It values the agency of human beings. Okay? We have people like Rousseau, Froebel, and others, okay, who have pioneered this understanding and theory. Right? And we have people like Montessori, Okay, we have John Dewey, Steiner. These people have embodied humanist philosophies in their work. Okay, this is humanistic orientation where teacher becomes the agent or humans become the agents for the kind of things that happen. So then we have what is called social cognitive theories as well, where cognitive process occurs in a social context. Okay, you are bringing in the social context, okay, which is little different from cognitive orientation. Here you are trying to bring in the social context. Okay, we have somebody like Bandura. Okay, so he has an interesting experiment. Okay, you could look at that experiment for yourselves. Anyway, that's not the focus now. So we have constructivist orientations as well. When we talk about constructivist orientations, we have two kinds of constructivism. One, I have actually put it in the silent mode, but anyway. Constructivism, we have cognitive constructivism, we have social constructivism. Cognitive constructivism is usually associated with Piaget. Okay, we associate cognitive constructivism to or with Piaget. Okay, Jean Piaget. Then we have where cognitive constructivism is the product of an internal cognitive activity. Okay, learners actively construct knowledge and understanding. They make meanings, okay, and their meanings rely on individuals' cognitive capacities. Okay. So now you are not bringing in the other players that are part of the ecosystem that you are inhabiting. So it's always personal. Learning is personal in this case. Learning is individualistic. Okay, this is what, but you are trying to make meaning, you are trying to construct meaning, but all of that is by yourself. Okay, this is cognitive. That's why we have Piaget talking about different stages of learning. Okay, for a child. Then we have social constructivism, where we have Vygotsky. Vygotsky talks about mind and society. Okay. He brings the most important concept that all of us are familiar with is zone of proximal development, ZPD. As I mentioned earlier, ZPD is to do with this. You have certain understanding now, and when you are alone, this is how you will learn. But if you work with somebody, and that somebody happens to be more knowledgeable than you are, then your learning will be much more than what you could learn on your own. This is what is potential. This is the potential that you hold. The difference, the distance between the actual learning and the potential learning is what we call zone of proximal development. That is the zone, okay, and you could move towards the potential with the help or support of more knowledgeable other. This more knowledgeable other so far have been understood as a human agent. In the human era, where technologies continue to evolve, we can no longer associate MKO with only humans. Therefore, all the language technologies available, or technologies in general, because our life is full of technology, right? We cannot simply think of life without technology. Therefore, this MKO can be even a non-human agent too. And that is what happens. ChatGPT or Gemini are non-human agents which are doing all that a human alone cannot do, an individual human being cannot do. Because they are doing things in no time. In a minute, they are able to write something like, 20 pages, or maybe not 20 pages, maybe about 3 or 4 page text, right? And very well written text, at least as far as language is concerned, no errors. There may be some other problems with such kind of generated text, right? So therefore, Vygotsky, though we are calling cognitive, socio-cognitive perspective, it has relevance to the modern times as well. So therefore, the last perspective, post-human condition or post-human orientation, takes or accommodates Vygotsky's notions as well. And as I said earlier, post-humanism debunks the hierarchy. What is the hierarchy? Teacher being the powerhouse in the classroom. Okay? So that is something that gets debunked in this case. So it debunks hierarchy, affirms that everything, that could be human, non-human, machine, ideas, etc., is relational. Everything is relational. Everything is connected. This is what is important here. Post-human orientation believes that everything is connected. And it facilitates multiplicity in learning. What does it mean? It means multiple ways of accessing and interacting with information inside and outside the confines of the classroom. So this is what post-human orientation talks about. So having understood the notion, so we have come off. In fact, we have learned the idea, the concept of learning has evolved over the years. It has completely changed now. A lot of change has come in. So having understood this, can we move to the next one? This is a part of cognitive theory, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This has its own relevance, but we have also moved away from there. Unless your physiological needs are met, you can't think of psychological needs. Unless your psychological needs are met, you can't think of self-fulfillment, or what we call self-actualization. It has a lot of relevance to the classroom. If students' physiological needs are met, you can't make them learn in the classroom. In that context, I wanted to bring in here. Next, move on to the next one, please. Yeah. So the concept called learning has changed, has undergone a lot of change. So, in what ways has it changed? One, the change we can notice in the way, we learn. What we learn with. We are learning with something else. We are not learning with what we were learning earlier. So the changes have come in 3 ways. What we learn with, how we learn. How are we learning? And where are we learning? In these 3 different ways, change in the idea of learning has come about. This change for us in the language classroom warrants the framework that I have proposed earlier, that supports post-human condition that we experience every day in our lives. Move on to the next one, please. Now, let me come to the framework that I have been talking about. This framework includes three things: connectivism as a learning theory, which is highly related to the idea called post-human orientation. Similarly, systemic functional linguistics as a language theory. And we have third theory called heutagogy, which is an educational theory. So I'm trying to bring in, so I'm not doing anything new here. All these three theories are there in the literature. I have brought them together, and I'm trying to indicate that these three theories have relevance to the 21st century language classroom. We can no longer be happy with the kind of theories that were there earlier. So we need to understand these theories and relate ourselves to them and then operate in our classrooms. That's the point that I'm trying to drive home. So now, connectivism as a learning theory was introduced in 2004 in a presentation by somebody called Siemens, and later he published it 2005. And we also have some Stephen Downes. These two people have talked about the idea called connectivism as a learning theory. So according to according to Downes, let's say he describes knowledge this way in post-human times as knowledge has many authors, right? And knowledge has many facets. It looks different to each person, and it changes moment to moment, right? A piece of knowledge isn't a description of something. It is a way of relating to something. Is this clear? A few questions on this before we move on. How many times the word knowledge has been repeated? Can you tell me? Both directly and indirectly. 8 times. Okay. Indirectly. Okay. So, what is the linguistic resource used for referring to it indirectly in this text? It. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So now, yes? Yeah. That's right. So how do you relate the last two clauses? How do you relate the last two clauses in that sentence? What relation do you notice between the two clauses in the last sentence? Do you notice that? What are they trying to do? What is this man trying to communicate to us? Okay. So knowledge isn't description of something. Okay. If you are able to describe something, that is not knowledge. Whether you are able to relate to that knowledge is what is considered knowledge. Isn't it? So knowledge isn't a description of something, it is a way of relating to something. Okay? It's one of the ways of relating to something. How do you relate to that something is what is knowledge. So look at this. This excerpt from Downes is in fact describing the post-human era. Therefore, connectivism is highly related to the idea of post-humanism. right? So now you have, which means it is trying to say that there is no single, that's why it's called, there are two terms that we need to understand here. Onto epistemic orientation. Okay? What is, and we also add ethical to that third one as well. What is onto epistemological orientation? What is ontology? Ontology is to do with nature of reality. Nature of reality. What reality do you believe in? Do you believe in a single reality? Do you believe in multiple realities? Do you believe in realities being fluid? This is what is your ontological position. Right? Your ontological position can be that there is only one reality out there, which is unlikely, which is not, in fact, not unlikely. When you say that there are multiple realities, that's one possibility. You could also go beyond and say that realities are very fluid. This is your ontological. Depending on your ontological position, depending on your belief on the nature of reality, your construction of knowledge depends. That is what is epistemology is. Your knowledge construction is dependent on what you believe in as a reality. Okay? In the post-human era, knowledge is something that cannot have a single agent. And knowledge need not be credited to, or need not be given, or need not be associated with a human agent alone. This is what is challenging, okay, to the humans now. The post-human theory challenges human agents in this way. Knowledge, okay, has many authors, and it is difficult to identify who those authors are. And whenever we say authors, authors need not be understood as human agents alone. This is the point that we are trying to. So by having said this, knowledge has many authors, knowledge has many facets, knowledge looks different to each person depending on the orientation that one has, and that it changes, okay, moment to moment. It is very, very transitory. It keeps changing, okay, and therefore a piece of knowledge isn't a description of something. It is in fact a way of, okay, looking at, a way of relating to something. Now the same person describes, having said this, he describes connectivism now in this fashion. Having described knowledge in this way, he describes connectivism in this fashion. That is, the thesis. Can you read it on your own, and then we can have a discussion on it for about a minute? Take a look at this quote by Downs, and let's discuss. Right? Can somebody paraphrase this to me? Gloss it to me. Can you gloss it to me? Okay, anybody? Yeah. Okay. 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 Anybody else? Good. Knowledge is not concentrated at one place. Knowledge is distributed. That's why we call distributed cognition. Okay? So knowledge is distributed across a network of connections. This word, network of connections, is important for us. This expression. Across a knowledge is distributed across a network of connections.
So like a spider web.
It's a polyweb. Spider web. Okay. Okay. Important point is you have knowledge distributed, but are you able to connect? Are you able to link? I'll be talking to you about the idea called nodes and links. These two concepts are very important for connectivism. Nodes and links. So nodes in the network are there, but are you able to link or connect those nodes is what matters here. Therefore, knowledge is distributed across a network of connections. Okay? And the learner should be able to establish those links in the network of connections. Okay? And therefore, learning consists of the ability to construct and traverse those networks. This is important. What is learning here? Learning is the ability to construct those network of connections. If you have the knowledge, and this knowledge is not at one place, it is distributed across a network of connections. What does learning mean here? Learning means ability to construct, ability to understand those network of connections in the circuit, let us say, and traverse those networks. You should be able to negotiate and move forward in the network. This is what we mean by, this is how he describes connectivism. Move on to the next one, please. So, connectivism as a learning theory, according to Siemens is another important figure in connectivism. He focuses on the role of technology. You have two people, Siemens and Downs. Siemens focuses on technology, on the role of technology in connectivist learning. Downs focuses on the importance of networks. Both are important. So while Siemens talks about the importance of technology, Downs talks about the importance of network. Both are important. Therefore, connectivism as a learning theory in the post-human era provides a framework for negotiating the changed nature of learning. We have understood that learning is no longer the same as we have understood earlier. Learning means our ability to construct the distributed knowledge that is there at the network of connections, in fact. So learning here does not simply mean being able to understand the surface meaning of the words. Learning here would mean ability to construct the distributed knowledge across network of connections. Okay? And then move forward in those networks to be able to figure out much more. Therefore, we are trying to talk about connectivism, therefore provides a framework for negotiating the changed nature of learning by leveraging the potential of technology and networks. So we have technology, we have networks. By leveraging these two affordances available for us, we should be able to negotiate the changed nature of learning. This is what, therefore, I would say connectivism in that sense provides a framework for us. It provides framework for us. Now, connectivism argues that learning is not just the sum of knowledge construction within us. It's not something that is inside us. Knowledge is not something that is within us, or knowledge that we construct within ourselves. Knowledge exists outside us as well. This, okay, knowledge that exists outside us within a vast network of information and connections. So this is therefore both inside knowledge and outside knowledge. Both are important in this case. So connectivism, okay, understands that learning is not simply that happens within the individual. Learning is something that also exists outside, and this, in order to access that, the learner should have the ability to understand and construct the distributed network of connections, distributed knowledge, in the network of connections. So that is important for us. Therefore, learning is both within us and outside us, and therefore we are calling it learning is no longer individualistic. Learning is no longer independent activity. Learning is a social activity. Learning is something that exists in the, let's say, culture in which we inhabit, in the ecology that we are part of. Okay? So, when we talk about learning in the connectivism, these two concepts become important for us: node and link. This generally we tend to understand nodes being non-human agents, right? But interestingly, nodes can be people, okay? Nodes can be, let us say, ideas. Nodes can be resources as well, right? So nodes need not be understood as something like an idea or certain kind of object. Nodes can be people as well. And it is the ability of the learner to connect or to establish connections with the nodes that results in actual learning. That is what connectivism talks about. Since connections are very, very fluid and evolving constantly and changing, it becomes imperative to us to use our critical thinking skills to navigate all the information available for us and identify reliable sources. This is important for us. It's now, these connections are continuously evolving. They are not the same all the time. Since they are evolving all the time, it's important for us to use our critical faculty to determine what is a reliable resource, what is not a reliable resource. Okay? So this is something that connectivism is able to help the teachers and perhaps contribute to generating learners with such an ability, in fact. Now, therefore, it's not enough if we know where knowledge is. You see? It's not enough to know where knowledge is. It's also important for us to know, how, to know that information. Okay? Knowing where the information is, okay, but that is not sufficient. It's also important for us to know how to know that information. Okay? So therefore, what matters is not the is the size of your network, correct? What matters is the size of your network, not how much you currently know. This is very important for us. Not how much you know, but what size of network that you have. That matters most in this case. This is an example of connectivist, okay, model where you have nodes and links in the network learning through large language models. Look at this. If you look at this, you have learners, which is also a node. You have teachers, researchers as facilitators, which are also nodes. These are all people. You have peers as well as nodes. But you have other things like ChatGPT, something like Gemini, large language models, Google Scholar, YouTube, okay, Quora, already existing. All these are nodes. Our ability to establish links among all these things is what is crucial in this context. Therefore, nodes, all these are nodes. Okay, both the humans and non-humans. But links are the ones that you establish yourselves. Okay, therefore these two concepts become important for us. So, this is how knowledge gets distributed. All of these provide us with knowledge. All these nodes provide us with knowledge, in fact. Right, next. So we have 8 principles of connectivism that Siemens and Downs propose. Okay, you have something called diversity of opinions. Okay, move on to the next one that becomes much more clear. Yeah, look at this. Principles of connectivism as indicated by Siemens and Downs. The first one is knowledge and learning and knowledge rests in the diversity of opinions. Okay? It's not that everyone holds the same kind of understanding. The fact that learning and knowledge can be different is something that one has to recognize and understand. There is no one single learning, there is no one single knowledge. That there are multiple pieces of knowledge and that these pieces of knowledge vary from person to person is what helps us understand in the post-human era. So this will help accommodate difference of opinion in the classroom. Okay, this is one. Second, learning is a process of connecting. Learning is not simply accumulating discrete, let's say, aspects of a given text or a formula. It is a process of connecting one to the other in a network of, okay, in a network of connections. Okay? So therefore, when you connect one aspect to the other, there is a possibility of forming a big picture in our mind. Right? The big picture that you have formed now, each one of us has certain big picture. This big picture is not the same for everybody. Right? The big picture that I have about something is very different from the kind of big picture that you may have. And this big picture does not remain the same. It keeps evolving every day. Because we continue to relate and connect to the network of, okay, knowledge, pieces of knowledge available in the system. The third is learning may reside in non-human appliances. This is what we've been talking about. Anything can have, okay, can have the potential to include knowledge in it. It could be even an animal. It could be even an object. It could be even something like LLM. Okay? These non-human appliances also have the potential to hold knowledge in them. Okay? Therefore, it's important for us to understand that agency need not be restricted to only humans. This is one point. Learning is more critical than knowing. This is important. Learning is more critical than knowing. So knowing is getting to understand a given concept, but learning is going beyond simply knowing. Right? So therefore, we need to place emphasis on learning rather than knowing. Right? Then, nurturing and maintaining connections are needed for continual learning. This is another aspect that we need to understand. We need to help learners connect to what they have learned. Okay, we need to help learners connect what they learned with what is available outside the classroom as well. Okay, so it is not the classroom alone that enables the learner to gain knowledge. Okay, we all know that knowledge comes from all corners. Okay, only thing is we should enable the learners to be able to recognize that and make a possible accommodation of such pieces of knowledge. So therefore, nurturing such connections and maintaining those connections are important for us to enable the learners to continue to learn. The next one, the ability to see connections. The ability to see connections between fields, ideas and concepts is a core skill. Suppose you learned, somebody is doing, let's say, a program called BTech in computer science, should be able to first of all understand the courses that constitute the program to begin with. What are the courses that constitute this program called BTech in computer science? How is one course related to the other? How does the learner understand the connections or establish connections between one course and the courses that he learns in other classes as well? So as a whole, how is this program coming about? And similarly, once he gets that, he should the learner should be able to also relate or connect his understanding with the understandings of the other disciplines as well. This is what is ability to see connections between fields, from one field to the other. In what ways are they related? Ideas and concepts. This is an important skill. Similarly, accurate, up-to-date knowledge is the aim of all connectivity learning. We cannot simply afford to be complacent. We need to all the time update our sense of understanding so that we become or we remain relevant for the kind of times that we are in. Lastly, very important one, decision making is a learning process. So what we know today might change tomorrow. While there is a right answer now, it might be wrong tomorrow due to the constantly changing information climate. This is something that we have to keep in mind, that at that point in time, you said this was right. But now, you cannot blame me that you have told me a lie. So this sense of understanding that we need to drive, in the minds of the learners or in ourselves, that what is right at this point in time need not be right in the next point in time or in a different context as well at the same time. So this is, therefore, decision making is something that is a process. that one has to cultivate. Okay, move on to the next one. So this is what mirrors the post-human theory. Okay, it highly places the individual in the era that we inhabit now, where we are erasing the hierarchies between humans and non-humans. Having understood that learning, connectivism is a learning theory, understanding that knowledge and learning are not constant, they continue to evolve every time, and therefore knowledge is not reposited at one place, it is distributed across networks, okay, and the learner should be equipped with the ability to understand and construct those, okay, pieces of knowledge which are spread across the networks of, okay, learning, and enable the learner to face such challenges and negotiate meaning from there. This is what is connectivism as a learning theory. And this is highly relevant and appropriate to the time that we are living in. Connectivism. Now, having understood learning theory, let's move on to the idea of language theory called systemic functional linguistics. How is this theory relevant to current times? First of all, if you look at this figure, it makes us understand that all of us have evolved as meaning makers over the years. All of us have evolved as meaning makers. We have not learned what we call cultural tools available in our culture to make meaning. We have learned and how to use tools available in a given culture for making meaning. I am using this very consciously because I am not saying language alone. I do not want to say that language alone is the resource for making meaning. In addition to language, we use several other meaning-making resources available in our culture. For example, because we are coming to a context like this, okay, we have dressed up in a certain way. Okay, this way of dressing up is a cultural tool available in this culture, accepted in this culture. That is also making meaning. Right? So in addition to this, we also use language. So in addition to using language as a resource for making meaning, we use other semiotic resources, other meaning-making resources as well. Okay? For example, we have waded through a number of meaning-making resources while reaching this place. Haven't we? We have read several traffic boards before we came, and we were regulated by the billboards, we were regulated by the traffic signals, aren't we? Our behavior was regulated by the traffic signals. When the red signal was shown to us, we stopped. When the green signal was given to us, our behavior was regulated. We moved. These are all meaning-making resources, but those meaning-making resources have little or very limited scope for them to make meaning, unlike language, which is a very complex one. Right? So, as a child, we go through these three phases, in fact. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. If you look at this carefully, we have content. We express the kind of meaning that we want to express. Okay? To express that meaning, we have certain kind of grammar when I say grammar, grammar need not be taken in a negative sense. Here, grammar I am referring to as a resource for making meaning, not as a set of rules. When I say resource, what I mean is choices and chains. Choices form chains. Choices are paradigmatic, chains are syntagmatic. You get this point? So, it is the choices that enable you to form a sentence, to form an expression. Right? So, therefore, this is what I am referring to as a grammar. I am referring to this as grammar. Grammar would mean both grammar and vocabulary, which is the choice of which is dependent on the context in which you are operating. We are not simply using grammar and vocabulary in isolation without minding where we are talking, whom we are talking with, and how we are doing that. Okay? So this is an important point. Similarly, we are also trying to understand that each individual has meaning potential. Each individual has meaning potential. What do we mean by meaning potential? Each individual have the capacity to make meaning. Okay? And this happens like this. Let me give you this example. Probably it might make sense. This sense of making meaning comes to us the moment that we come to this world. You know that? The moment we fall into this world, we start making meaning. Whether that child is aware of or not aware of, that meaning making is there already. How? For example, the child has just arrived in your house today, let us say. What does the child do? Cries. So when the child cries, the child is making meaning. The child knows or does not know, that's a different story. You are able to make sense of cry of the child. What is the meaning that you made? The child is alive. That the child is alive is made, sense to us. We made sense of the cry of the child as the child being alive. That is the meaning that you and I, as members of a given culture, have been able to make sense of. Right? Similarly, suppose the child does not cry. What do you do? What do you do if the child does not cry? You pinch it, don't you? Tap it, whatever. You do something. If the child cries, then you construe that the child is alive. If the child does not do any does not respond in any way, you might construe in a different way. But there are meanings. I mean, all meanings are possible. This is where the journey of meaning making begins with the individual as a human being. Is this clear? Now, but you might say, so how does child know? No, the child does not know. I'm not saying that the child knows. The child does not know all this. It is the members that are present in the context in which this happens are construing meaning, are making meaning. It is the people that are present there are making the meaning, not the child. Which means we construe meaning, we make meaning from the cultural tools available for us. When it's cultural tools, language is also a cultural tool. And other resources that we deploy for making meaning also are cultural tools. Right? Because each occasion demands a different kind of meaning-making resources to be deployed. When you have to, for instance, when you have to attend a wedding, you would have a different kind of meaning-making resource adorning your bodies or whatever. Right? If you have some other occasion which is very solemn, For instance, something like a funeral ceremony, you, okay, have a different kind of meaning-making resource that you deploy and then appropriately behave in that context. So, we have several meaning resources, not just language alone. Okay? So now, the point here is, if you look at phase 1, the child after about 3 or 4 months time, say by 9 months time, the child is able to perform all these micro functions. The child is able to control people around it. The child does not have much language, but the people around the child are trying to ascribe meanings to the sounds made by the child. The child discovers that, oh, if with the limited resources, I'm able to control entire, okay, people in my house. Suppose I have the complete resource, maybe I would be able to control or rule the entire world. That could be one possible understanding. Okay, so in the phase 1, these are the kind of micro functions that the child, okay, is able to accomplish. He could, okay, you could have instrumental function. He could regulate the people around it. He could also interact by making some sound. These sounds may not have any meaning. It's only people around the child who are interpreting the sounds in these, okay, different ways. But from there, you have pragmatic meaning, you have mathetic meaning as well. But from there, you move to phase 2, where you have pragmatic functions and mathetic functions. The child grows, okay? And now, here, we have generalized functions here. And when you move from phase 2, where you have what we call macro functions, these are called pragmatic function, mathetic functions are macro functions. Okay? The 6 functions that you have here are the micro functions. So when you move from second phase to the third phase, we have what we call meta functions. Okay, what are these meta functions? Meta functions are these. You have, okay, resources to make meaning of your experience of the world. Okay, you create, you have certain kind of experience of the world. The world could be the world within you. The world could be the world outside you as well. About both the worlds, you have certain experiences in your, okay, in you. These experiences you express in terms of, okay, these 3 meta functions called ideational meta function, okay, which includes experiential meaning and logical meaning. You express ideas, you also express ideas in a logical manner so that the people make sense of you. That is what is logical meaning as well. Similarly, so when you say experiential meaning, you have experience about something. Therefore, this is about a topic. So when you talk about an idea, a topic, that topic or idea has to have certain kind of logic. Okay? This logic is what we call, we have two kinds of things. We have what we have expansion, we have projection. Expansion is understood as elaboration, okay, enhancement, then extension. Extension, we show it, okay, with the symbol called plus, you add or contrast. Okay, elaboration, we show it with multiplication symbol, because we multiply meanings by adding number of details, maybe by giving reasons, by giving conditions, okay, by providing purposes, okay, by talking about the, let's say, something like manner in which we have done. All these are elaborations. Therefore, we are calling them multiplications with the symbol we are showing. Then we have extension. which is actually you are simply extending the meaning. Therefore, what you are doing is equal to. Okay? Is equal to, you simply extending the meaning. Okay? Extending the meaning, perhaps you are restating the meaning in different. This is, okay, what is one of the kinds of logical meaning. The second meaning is what is called projection. Projection. What do we project? We project ideas. We project ideas, or we project our speech. You understand? What is projecting idea? I think it is time for break. I think is idea. I think is projection. Idea is time for break. That is idea. So I am projecting this idea, it's time for break, through this projection called I think. Okay? Similarly, we have locution, that is speech. You can also project speech or sayings. He said she was not well. So it is locution, this is speech. You are projecting, okay? He said, this is projection. Okay? Projecting clause. What is projected is she is not well. These are the two things that constitute one of the systems of logico-semantic meanings. Right? So now, having understood ideational meaning, then we have what is called interpersonal meaning as well. Interpersonal meaning is what talks about your use of the mood, the idea of mood. For example, when I say the earth is flat, suppose I say the earth is flat, what am I doing? I am not giving any scope for negotiation on this topic. Am I? When I say the earth is flat, my statement does not give any scope for negotiation. No negotiation. Suppose I say the earth must be flat, the earth should be flat, the earth might be flat, the earth is likely to be flat, okay? The earth tends to be flat. This is where you have the scope for negotiation. Right? So this between this we have absolutes, what we call modality, in fact. Okay? Modality is between two polarities. What are the polarities? Do, don't do. That's it. No scope for negotiation. Is or isn't. No scope for negotiation. Between the two, he always comes late. He is different from he comes late. They are not the same. He always comes late. He is not the same as he comes late. He always comes late is less, okay, absolute than he comes late. Because always is tweaking, is lessening the absoluteness in it. So between the poles, between the two poles, do and don't, is as isn't, is what we have. Is the space that is there between the two is what we call modality. Okay? This modality is to do with probability. This modality is to do with obligation. This modality could be related to inclination. This modality could be related to potentiality as well. Okay? If you go on, you might, okay, get to the ideas relating to deontic modality, epistemic modality, all those things. Students from linguistics would know all this. Anyway, this is interpersonal meaning. Then we have textual meaning. Textual meaning is something that helps us organize the text in the way that is relevant to the context in which a given text is written. Okay, this is textual meaning. So these three, especially, why is it relevant here? The relevance is this: we make meanings. For example, in an academic context, when writing an academic text for peers in the field, academic texts tend to be dense, tend to be complex, tend to be abstract, not because you want them to be dense, complex, and abstract so that people don't understand. It's because, as I mentioned earlier, we don't understand speaking and writing as binaries. We understand them as different points on a cline or on a continuum. So when you move from speaking, when you move from an action that took place at a given point in the here and now, and then reflect on what action, on the action that took place, and report it to somebody, you're reporting that to somebody in the language by building the context that was not available to the reader or listener at that point in time. Right? To give you an example, certain event took place here in the morning. You were all there. You understood that. But in the evening, you reflect on the event that took place. Okay? When reflecting on the event that took place, what do? You have a purpose to do that. What is the purpose? You want to send this as a report to a newspaper. So you have audience to understand. And those audience who read this report do not know where this took place and what happened there. They were not party to it. So for them to understand, you need to provide the context that you have witnessed in the language alone. For you, the context was not available in the language. It was available to you in multiple forms. Okay, but for the reader, the context cannot be provided in the way you had. You have to provide the context for that person in the language alone. Therefore, you use nominalizations. For example, when I say, I think she is rather dull. Suppose I say this. I think she is rather dull. What is this I think? For example, I think she is rather well. Can you give me the tag to this? What is the tag to this? Tag, question tag. Good. I think she is not well. Isn't she? We don't say, don't I? Why? Because I think does not carry the content meaning. It carries your attitude, your tentative sense of her being unwell. So the test for it is tag, constructing a tag. I think she is unwell, isn't she? Helps us understand that I think does not have any role to play in constructing the idea, but it only adds your perspective to it. You get the point? The expression I think, I think is nothing but she may be unwell. I think this clause called I think is doing the job of modal maybe. You get the point? I think is doing the job of an adverb called perhaps she is unwell. So the point that I'm trying to drive home is, this is what is called grammatical metaphor. You are letting the job of, you are actually making other language items do the job of a modal verb. A clause is doing the job of a modal verb. Okay, this is not typical. This is not how typically it happens. Typically it happens through a modal verb. But when you do, or when you let this happen through a non-typical way, that is when you have the possibility of grammatical metaphor. This is what creates complexity in the text. For example, suppose I say, something like this: my daughter refuses to have milk in the morning. My daughter refuses to have milk in the morning, for I provide her with a supplement. Right? This is very simple to understand. Typical. Suppose I say this, I would not say in a different context. If I were to say this to somebody who is not here to appear in the academic context, I would say it in a different way. How do I say? My daughter's so there were two clauses earlier. I am making one clause now. My daughter's refusal to have milk in the morning. One single, it's actually a noun group. It's not a clause any longer now. My daughter refused to have milk is a clause. My daughter's refusal to have milk in the morning is not a clause. It's a phrase. Okay? Resulted in. Therefore, in the previous example, I used the word therefore, which is a conjunction, has become a verb now, resulted in. My daughter's refusal to have milk in the morning resulted in my providing her with a supplement, which was a clause earlier, has become a noun phrase. This is what, so what are you doing? You're packing a lot of information into a noun phrase. Noun phrases have the capacity to carry any amount of information. So you are making use of this resource available in that context to make your meaning. In that context, you do not have much space to write a number of clauses there. Therefore, you are trying to compact, or you are trying to pack a lot of information into this resource available in the language. So now, so in the 21st century, making meaning in a given context for a given audience, minding the contextual parameters, is something that needs to be understood. Language need not be or should not be viewed as a set of rules. It should be viewed as a resource for making meaning, and language alone is not the resource for making meaning. There are multiple other resources for making meaning. We always make use of multiple modes. That's why we call multimodal meaning. Okay? Move on to the next one, please. So these are the different fields of activity that we engage ourselves in. Okay? We have, we sometimes expound knowledge. How do we expound knowledge? By classifying, by taxonomizing, okay, or by, okay, explaining. Either by categorizing or by explaining. Okay? We might report, okay, we also do reporting. Reporting is done either through inventorying or through surveying or through chronicling. Like this, we have different fields of activity. This is socio-semiotic process. That means it is a meaning-making process in a given social context. It's not in isolation. These are the different kinds of things that we do here. And each of them marshals different kinds of resources for it to become a text that gets recognized in that context. Okay? Move on to the next one, please. Okay, this is different way of putting it across. So you have, these are the different kinds of activities. These are the different kinds of texts that result in these activities. We have 8 activities: doing, exploring, expounding, reporting, recreating, sharing, recommending, enabling. These are the different 8 kinds of different activities, fields of activities. These are the different kinds of texts that get out of these fields of activities. Okay, so our use of resources for making meaning should mind where we are operating. Then we can make the right meaning. Move on to the next one, please. Okay, this is the learning path students go through. Okay, in different kinds of situations. For example, the by age 18, a child is expected to have maturity in language use. The child should grow as a mature language user by age 18. When I say mature language user, in writing. What is mature language user? Your ability to use grammatical metaphor where you do not use typical language resources for making meaning. You don't say, for example, very simple thing is something like this. I'm feeling rather cold today. What did I do? I made a statement. I used a declarative clause, indicative mood. Typically, I mean, but the meaning that I intended was not that I make. So the meaning is different, right? When I say it's rather cold, what I meant was probably switch off the AC, right? So to you, instead of using an imperative clause, I have used a declarative clause to mean a command, to mean a request, let us say. To mean a request, instead of using an imperative clause, I used a declarative clause. This is what is grammatical metaphor at the interpersonal level. Why do we use, can you please help me with lifting the chair? What am I doing here? Okay, I am using a question to request you, where typically we use what is called an imperative clause. Instead of using imperative clause, I'm using a question. Why am I using a question here? Because I do not want to impose on your face. I do not want to threaten your face. I want to respect your face. I want to respect your self-esteem and also get my work done. I also expect you to similarly reciprocate and respect my face and then use language the way that is appropriate there. This is so, which means politeness, which is indicated in these ways, is always indirect, not typical. These are all examples of grammatical metaphors at different levels, right? So this ability to understand such meanings and choices, right choices in context, is something that our learners should be able to figure out. Okay, move on, please. Okay, these are, I mean, when you organize a text, when you write a text, and your text must read clearly and coherently, right? It has to have unity, it has to have clarity. So for you to have such clarity in the text, okay, it's important that we use different kinds of themes. Okay, whether I say, yesterday I came here, or I say, I came here yesterday. Why did I choose what I chose? Okay, it's all these are motivated choices. These are not, innocent choices. These are all motivated. You use the language the way you use because you have a motivation to use the language that way, because you wanted to communicate, you wanted to achieve certain purpose. Okay, these are the different kinds of themes that we deploy for organizing a text that reads coherent and cohesive as well. Move on to the next one, please. Okay, this is what I was talking about modality. Okay, you could go through this later. These are all, okay, whenever we, remember we have different experiences that I mentioned to you, right? We have inner experiences, experiences within us, experiences outside us, okay? So we have 6 different process types for it, okay? 6 different kinds of, let's say, verbs we have. We have material processes to do physical activities. We have mental processes to talk about our, let's say, cognitive aspects. Okay? We have relational processes to relate one thing to the other and identify oneself or describe something or classify something. So we have different kinds of processes here. And this is what I was mentioning to you earlier, extension, projection, and extension here. Okay, look at these symbols over there, is equal to multiplication and addition, which is indicated with plus. Okay, this is also something that helps us understand how logico-semantic system works. Then, this language theory is something that helps us understand that language is a resource for making meaning rather than a set of rules. Therefore, one need not worry about cramming rules to the memory, but understand that the language is a resource for making meaning. Therefore, right resources need to be deployed for making meaning in right context. That's the point that I was talking about. The last theory, I do not know whether you have time, okay? Okay. The last theory, I'm bringing in the educational theory now. We have so far moved from learning theory, connectivism, language theory, systemic functional linguistics. Now we are moving on to educational theory called Hutagazi. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, Hutagazi has its etymological roots in heuristics. Hu is to discover. So when you have Gazi is to do with leading the child. In fact, in this case, lead. Okay? So Gog, pedagogue, or whatever, andragogue. Okay? Gog is somebody who leads. Gazi is the process of leading. Okay? Gog is somebody who leads it. The person leading the process that leads somebody. Okay? So Hutagazi is leading child to discover herself about something. That is Hutagazi is. Which means you are erasing the hierarchies, giving the agency which was with the teacher earlier to the learner. You see the point? Hutagazi enables the child to take charge of her own learning. The child is enabled to take charge of her own learning. Okay? Hutagazi helps us gain or achieve such a feat in learning. Right? So these are the people who have proposed or introduced the idea of Hutagazi. A progressive combination of what we call andragogy, somebody called novels, and pedagogy, we all know. I don't generally make a much distinction between or among the three, but this talks about moving from, it's a continuum, PAH we call it, pedagogy, andragogy, Hutagazi. It's not something that you discard one, come to the other. At different levels, you move from pedagogy to andragogy, andragogy to Hutagazi. So maybe when you teach children in school context, you might use pedagogy in certain sense. When you teach adults, perhaps you use andragogy. Okay? When you, let's say when you teach adults who want to take charge of their own learning, then you use what is called heutagogy, where you are making the learners lifelong learners. If you want somebody to become a lifelong learner, then that person should be highly motivated, determined, so that he or she take charge of their own learning. This is what is called self-directed learning. Okay, so heutagogy enables that. So it is, again remember, this is something that is rooted in socio-constructivist theory. I was talking to you about Vygotsky. Vygotsky's social constructivist theory, because learning does not stop with yourself. It is not it is not cognitive constructivist theory, where you learn and construct knowledge within yourself, in a social context perhaps. But you do not necessarily interact with the others and give the agency for the other person to help you, okay, make progress from one point to the other. But in social constructivist theory, it believes that there is a potential for everyone to move from what one is to the one, okay, to a place where that person is capable of moving. Okay, this is what is scaffolding. Brunner, okay, is the one who, okay, provides us with the idea called scaffolding, which is used in Vygotskian theory called social constructivist theory, where, okay, you are letting the child or learner, okay, move from zone of actuality to zone of potentiality. That is the proximal, okay, development that you are enabling the child to move. And this you are doing it by enabling or by making use of MKO. What is that MKO? More knowledgeable other. Interestingly, in the context of heutagogy, in the context of posthumanism, this more knowledgeable other need not be understood, okay, as a human being, as we do conventionally. This more knowledgeable other can be any technological support, okay, or any technological advancement that we have, or any other thing for that matter. That is what we are talking about here. Therefore, this heutagogy, in that sense, is rooted in social constructivist theory. And interestingly, this is a framework centered on the learner's autonomy and self-direction. So therefore, since you are enabling the child to take charge of her learning, the child becomes autonomous. Okay? The child becomes autonomous. Probably every child may not be ready for becoming or taking charge of one's own learning. Okay, when you notice, therefore, we need to move from being a teacher to, perhaps this is the transition that we are supposed to make. We need to transition from being a teacher to becoming a guru. Right? Why should we transition from being a teacher to becoming a guru? Teacher may not be able to recognize whether the child is ready for taking charge of her own learning. Guru is somebody who is capable of recognizing whether the child is ready for taking charge of one's own learning. Therefore, there is a need for us to transition from being a teacher to becoming a guru in the course of time. Right. So, that is what helps the learner direct their own learning on their own. And heutagogy also empowers students to define their own learning objectives, because okay, they have set a goal for themselves. All of us at this stage have our own goals in life. We work for it. Some people work very, very meticulously. Some people take it very light. It depends on one's own personality. Certain people, the moment they set a goal, they start working right from that moment onwards. And therefore, they have their goal achieved in no time. Okay? So that is what is self-motivation, self-determination. So when you define your own learning objectives, recognize your unique educational needs, and choose the most effective strategies to achieve their goals. So each one of us is self-aware, okay, what works and what does not work for us. So based on that, we make choices and then choose the right path. Similarly, Hutagazi assumes that learners take full responsibility for their educational journey and possesses the capability to steer their own learning experiences independently. This is what I've been talking to you about. Then, in this era, in the post-human times, the efficacy of heutagogical approaches gains momentum. Now, this is the time where heutagogical approach gains certain kind of recognition. It is the time for heutagogy to come into force, because there is rapid progression of technology, and the independence the technology provides the learner, in terms of their access to knowledge and the use of such access. It is the technology that provides access to the learner. Technology provides access to the learner for knowledge, and that access also is made easy for the learner, and technology plays a role in making it accessible for the learner. It's not simply available, but it's also accessible. Availability, is not enough. It should be accessible. What is accessibility? The child's ability to recognize that it is there and understand it. It is available. All of us, it is there, but we have never recognized it. Only when we recognize it, it becomes accessible to us. So availability does not mean accessibility. Right? Move on, please, next. Okay. These are the principles of heutagogy. So self-determination. You have your own goal, and therefore you reflect on the practices that you have deployed for achieving your goal. Then you assess yourself, and provide perhaps certain kind of rating for your own doing. And you direct your learning on your own. Nobody directs for you. And you are autonomous. You are independent of what you do. Nobody driving you. And it happens throughout your life. It's a lifelong learning. These are the principles that govern the heutagogy. So look at this. This is moving from pedagogy to andragogy to what is called heutagogy. Look at this and spend a few minutes on this figure and see if you can figure out. So what is happening here? We have three levels: level 1, level 2, level 3. In level 1, you are with instructor. Look at this. I was telling you, Vygotsky's social constructivist theory is in operation now. You are with instructor. You are scaffolded. Your learning is scaffolded. Right? Now, when you move, therefore, you are engaged. In level 1, you are engaged. Therefore, there is pedagogy there. When you move to level 2, you are cultivating the habit of, let's say, understanding, habit of learning something. In this case. So, here, what is happening here? You are not completely autonomous, but there is certain kind of release of the scaffolding, withdrawal of the scaffolding, withdrawal of the support. And it is not done suddenly. There is no sudden release of the support. It is the gradual release of the support. Gradually support is released, and that gradual release lets you move to level 3, where you realize okay, your goal. You realize that you are capable of taking charge of your own learning. Okay, in level 1, okay, you need scaffolding, you need support. You can't be left alone. There's no maturity here yet. Okay, in level 2, okay, this support is extended but also slowly withdrawn. Okay, that lets you move to level 3, where you are trying to realize you are now capable of taking charge of your own learning. Therefore, you become autonomous and you demonstrate maturity in the way you think, in the way you write, in the way you speak. Okay, and therefore you completely check away or check out the support that is given to you. Okay, the scaffolding is no longer available to you, or you don't require in fact. So that's why it is movement from pedagogy, where you are engaged, okay, to andragogy, where you are made to cultivate the habits of, okay, learning the concepts, learning ideas, learning to understand the world in general, learning to operate in different disciplines, learning to operate in different contexts with multiple actors present in it. Then, when you are exposed to so many contexts of language use and meaning making situations, you understand that now I don't need any support. That is what is realization that comes in. That is when you reach, okay, this level 3, you simply take away the support that was provided to you and become autonomous and independent learner. So this is the movement that is happening. So this is something that happens, okay, through heutagogy. There is, I'm citing somebody called Anjali or Anjana Krishna. I think this lady is with Srinidhi Institute of Engineering and Technology. I think so. It's a beautiful paper by them. Move on to the next page. Okay, so these are the aspects of heutagogical learning and challenges that go with it. So these are the aspects of heutagogy. You have immediate feedback. Okay, you have materials suggested by the learners. Okay, then you have collaborative learning activities that evoke learners' individuality, self-assessments, self-reflective activities, flexible materials, online portfolios. But these are the challenges as well. You can't do heutagogy, okay, in an institutional context like this. You have several constraints in the institution. Okay, and sometimes, okay, you recognize that these children are not ready for taking charge of their own learning. Therefore, they may remain passive. Or sometimes you may recognize that they are capable, but they are somehow very laid back. So you may have to do something about it. Okay? Then, because they are used to scaffolding, support, somehow they are not willing to get weaned off. Right? When you get used to something, it is difficult to get weaned off from what you are given. Right? Therefore, they would like the teacher to be present every time. Even if they have grown, we see every day in our house, don't we? Our children have grown, they are doing their BTech, maybe masters. Still, certain children, okay, come and tell me, what is this, what is that, can you explain me that? Not that they are not capable, they can do much better. They are, you have seen several. But still, somehow, they have that comfort zone. They just wanted to have your support every time. Because perhaps they are not ready to take any risk. So this is what I mean by learner's preference of teacher-centeredness. They want somebody to, okay, take hold of their responsibility. Okay? And sometimes what happens, even if the children are ready for it and you are also ready for it, you have the institutional constraints or policy constraints that do not let you have it. Because if the curriculum itself is teacher-centered, you have less say over there, and whatever little you do in the classroom, you could only do in the classroom, not outside the classroom much. Even within the classroom, you have several constraints, okay, where you are supposed to get children ready for the examination, things like that. So you can't experiment, okay, much in this case. Similarly, in certain situations, there is digital learning divide. For example, all children may not have access to digital technology that we all have. So that also is a challenge for us. Then student-directed evaluation is impracticable since pedagogy, andragogy, and heutagogy continuum is absent. You continue to do only pedagogy throughout your life. Okay, if that is the situation, then okay, this student-directed learning becomes null and void. Right? Now, okay, these are the sources that I consulted. In case you're interested, you might go through it. The point that I'm trying to drive home here is that these three theories that I brought together have a lot of relevance in the times in which we are living. Therefore, we need to approach language as a resource rather than a set of rules. We need to understand that knowledge is not available at one place, it is distributed across networks of connections, and you should enable the learners to establish connections between the nodes within the network. Okay? And then lastly, you should also enable the learners to move from teacher-centered approaches to learner-centered approaches, and from there you need to enable them to become their own self-directed learners. Okay? This is what these three theories talk about, or espouse in this case. So with that, I shall stop here. If you have any questions, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think that is a theory in the making. Hopefully, we'll have a theorist here who's going to come up with one, and it'll become a language theory in the future. Yeah. So it'll turn into one language theory in the future, and we need them, sir. We need theorists from India, actually. I hope it builds into one. And are you publishing this? It's a very interesting thing that you're combining three aspects and building it into something very new. Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing that into to our audience. However, I think I'll ask questions from our participants. Like, I'll ask if they have any questions. We have online participants also. And some 40 are there online and the rest are here. So we'll take up the questions and then just. So, yeah. Anyone who has a question here? Yeah, okay, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. Lot of knowledge we could gather by this. It is very depth of knowledge, I can say, about the educational psychology and grammar and noun phrases and all. I personally recapitulated everything from my PGCT and PGTT program from FLU. And as our concern today is about the digital era and the English language teaching, as you taught about heutology, so you told about self-determined learning about. So my question is, what tools or platforms best support heutological English classroom? And second question, ma'am, what are your recommendations for heutagogy in large classroom settings? And the third question is, how can heutagogy be introduced in institutions bound by traditional curriculum? Because we are, even though we are in digital era, we are bound to take their curriculum. So could you please elaborate on that? Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, you can address from there also, sir. Or if you want to come here, the audience will see.
Right. What is question one? Yeah, correct. What tools and platforms support heutagogical approach in the English language classroom? Right. In fact, heutagogy has gained momentum from, let us say, 2000s onwards, when we have started offering MOOC courses. MOOCs. In fact, from 2010 onwards, they became very popular. So from 2010 onwards, we had lakhs of people registering for MOOCs, one single MOOC. Okay, so these are the platforms where heutagogy has a role to play. Because to be able to participate in such a course, you need to be self-determined, you need to have self-directed goal, you need to be able to self-reflect, you need to be able to, let us say, self-assess yourself, and then participate. And the fact that you have the urge to learn and enrich your understanding is something that actually speaks for your interest in being a lifelong learner. So this is where heutagogy, that's why heutagogy is level 3.
Yeah.
Heutagogy is level 3.
Realization.
Realization.
Yeah.
As long as the child or an individual, okay, is at level 1 where he is engaged by somebody, it is difficult for that person to move to level 3. To be able to move to level 3, one should, okay, traverse these two phases. Level 1, engaging. Level 2, cultivating or cultivation. Only when the child realizes that he is capable of taking charge of one's own learning or his own learning, then heutagogy can come into picture. I am not saying that this has no role in the classroom. In the classroom as well, the teacher can recognize certain students who has this ability. For them, okay, even in the language classroom, you have, okay, a role to play by providing additional materials, by directing them to, let's say, knowledge which is distributed across networks, asking them to understand knowledge in that way, making them understand that knowledge is not something that is, let us say, that is, what do you call, that is rigid. When I say rigid, it has the potential to become changing, to change in fact. In the course of time, what is true might become irrelevant in a given context. Therefore, that ability for the learner to understand that what I learned today, okay, might change in the course of time is something that has to set in the learner. Also, if you understand our own traditional curriculum, it's impossible for any course or any program to include everything that is there in the knowledge system, in the epistemology, in the database of knowledge as such. It's impossible, right? Even if you look at language for that matter, how much can you include? That's why we call it pedagogical grammar. What is pedagogical grammar? Whatever unfortunately, whatever the policy makers and textbook writers believe that is useful for the learner, that kind of grammar alone gets included. in the textbooks. But that what gets included, how relevant it is, that's a different question altogether, whether that is relevant or not. Okay, but this is how, okay, things happen. What is your next question? Yeah.
Next question is, how can pedagogy be introduced in institutions bound by traditional curriculum?
Yeah, that's what. At, a, at an individual level, one may be able to do in bits and pieces. But at an institution level, since there is a, you have institutional apparatus which is perhaps influenced by the policy of the government, of the country for that matter. Okay, if the country has its own policy, educational policy, which may not encourage, let us say, pedagogical learn approach, okay, then you will have not much to do. You might do some, but not as much as you wish to do. But I think given our situation in our country, with NEP 2020 in place, I think there is room for pedagogical approaches to come in, even in the institutionally bound, okay, cultures and settings. Right? Yeah.
As the, like, from traditional to conventional teaching, sir, we have moved to, like you said, we are not the powerhouses of the class.
Yes.
We are the facilitator. So, what are the recommendations for large classroom of
Yeah.
English?
This idea of, again, we are facilitate, it depends on where we are operating. For example, irrespective of whether it is a school or a college or a university, if you see your learners merely getting engaged and not moving to cultivating the learning habits and not moving to realization stage, you will not become a facilitator. Right? Your role of becoming a facilitator happens only when the children are able to move to level 1 to level 2, level 2 to level 3. But you have a role to play in level 1 and level 2 as well, where you are providing the support in level 1, you are providing or you are withdrawing the support provided in level 2.
Sir, undergraduate level students, we can consider it as realization level only. So,
Okay.
all right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Any more or can we?
And scholar of Kranti Priya ma'am.
Okay.
My question is, you told so many theories, sir, very informative. Connectivitism as a learning theory. Learning is a no longer independent activity, you said. So how can we help students connect with new ideas? This is my question.
Okay. That is connectivism as a learning theory makes us understand that learning is no longer an intrinsic activity that happens at the individual level. Okay, therefore, we are actually enabling the learner to collaborate with the peers in the classroom, with the teacher in the classroom, with the other non-human beings like ChatGPT, Gemini, Bard, and other platforms that enable the learner, okay, to work with these non-human, both human and non-human players, and then understand how knowledge is happening there. So it's not something that happens alone at the if the learner believes that he can learn on her own independently, that is something that has lost its value now. It cannot happen like. Therefore, we cannot close our doors and believe that we are doing well. We need to understand that, okay, there is world outside, and whether I fit in that world is something that you need to examine and test yourself, whether you fit there. So this happens only when you are able to collaborate with the others, when you're able to, let us say, take the support of the MKOs, more knowledgeable others, whether humans or non-humans. That is what enhances your knowledge. Okay, that is what enables you to become, perhaps in the course of time, an independent learner as well.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody? Yeah.
If anyone in online, they didn't post anything yet in the chat box or the WhatsApping, and I'm checking that also. But if you have any more questions, you can post it to me or in the WhatsApp group. I'll forward that to sir. Maybe I can mail him, and questions can be because it's a new area that you're talking about, new combination of theories, and also something which is more on learner progress and learner autonomy, which is the ultimate goal of any teacher. So if young researchers or teachers have doubts in this, you can definitely message to me. I'll put all of that compiled into sir, and his responses will be shared in the group. That we can do, sir. Maybe if anyone has any questions. So we'll wind the session here, and we'll break for lunch. It's already here, so participants, you can go and have your lunch. And online participants also, please take your lunch break and be back by 2 o'clock. I know I'm giving you 45 minutes today, not more than 45. I think it'll be fine for today. So we'll be back, at 2. Before that, before going for lunch, I would like to call Tanushri ma'am and Chandrasekhar sir, both. Yeah. So to felicitate, sir. I think Kiran sir is also here. He's one of our collaborators from EFLU, Department of Literatures in English. So we collaborated with EFLU and NIT Warangal. He was the reason that we initiated this and carrying on with this one, sir. So can you please come onto the stage? Yeah, that I thought shawl ke done. उनको दे दीजिए shawl, he'll put that.